This is the Final Word Ashes Daily, day 4. It feels like it should be day 5, but it is day 4 at Headingley. Something about day 4s at Headingley in the sun on a Sunday. Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins with you. The show brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. And you, Adam, have the task of compressing that entire day into the space of 30 seconds.
All right, they needed 2-2-4 to win from where they started. None for 27 this morning. They lose Duckett early to Starc with a bit of swing, hits the front pad, knocks over Mo and Ali, who was elevated to 3. Joe Root falls before lunch as well. They're 4 down, but straight after lunch, they lose with 98 to win. Stokes strangled down the leg side and Bairstow chopping on, and they have 80 to win. 4 wickets in hand. Tense. Ties on. I called it last night. In walks Chris Wokes. What a great selection he was. 32 not out. Keeps his cool. It's down to 59 with Harry Brook coming of age. Innings for him making 75. They get there with Wood there at the end appropriately. So the player of the match, England victorious by 3 wickets. The Ashes alive.
Wow. It was tense. It was so tense through those closing stages. I want to start with Harry Brook. I want to start not at the very, very end, but near the end, because I wanted him to get there. I wanted him to, to have the moment of being there, not out. I mean, he's had such an incredible start. Hundreds in Pakistan, hundreds in New Zealand, made a 50 in each test match so far this series. And yet there was still this kind of unconvinced thing about Harry Brook, like the way that he got out at Lords. There was a lot of question marks about that, about the baseballing kind of shots, questions that we asked as well. And then coming up to number 3 here in the first innings, he looked out of place. They had that shuffle, they put Mo into 3, and I reckon that helped him tremendously. And he comes in and he just played an absolute gem of an innings. The pressure was on. Stokes is out cheaply, and they need someone else to do that job, and he does that job instead.
Yeah, and doing it here at Headingley as well, at the home ground and all the rest of it. Yorkshireman, young guy on the tear. But it felt different today. It felt like at 5 he's at home. England have been a little bit rigid when it comes to their decision making over the Bazball era so far, and we've seen that with their reluctance to move to Ben Folkes when it feels overwhelmingly like the right thing to do to help Bairstow along the way and to be as productive as he was last year. But where they did show flexibility today, Mo and Ali evidently went and spoke last night to Brendan McCullum and said, I want to make a contribution, I want to bat at 3. And at the time I didn't like it. My instinct was they didn't need to change the energy of the chase because they started so nicely with Crawley, who was still there, and Duckett. They were actually taking the sting out of it pretty well. Cummins didn't start well in his first spell, for example. But yeah, it did delay Brook's arrival, which in turn gave him the extra, flexibility to play the way that he likes playing, and it worked so well. I agree with you. I wanted him to be there at the end and hit the winning runs over to the Western Terrace with Chris Wokes and finish the job. In the end, it was probably appropriate that it was Mark Wood, though, which included a huge 6 top edge, didn't it? And I think there was a couple of 6s for him in his brief stay, and they have the player of the match there with Wokes at the end, but it's all because of Brook. Yeah,
the one, so he ended up, Wood was 40 off 24 balls for the match or something like that, or 40 off 14 balls, whatever it was. Something ridiculous as he got there towards the end. Brook off the front foot early in the innings, so good, like so powerful the way he was taking on the quicks. I liked the move of Moeen because I thought Moeen at 7 was like, he didn't have much to do there. He didn't have a very clear job there, is how it seemed to me. And I thought if you've got, say, if wickets are fallen and you've got Moeen coming in with 80 needed at 7, he's going to be a bit in 2 minds about how to approach it and all the rest of it. I thought put him at 3. He's coming in against a newer ball. We know that he's good through the covers. He's got that offside play. The newer ball might suit him. He might be able to get it away more quickly. And he'll have a very clear mandate, which is come out and play like Mo and Ali, come out and flow. So it didn't work. He gets out for a low score, but the idea, I thought, had some merit because there was almost no downside. It was all upside, and had it worked, had he nailed 30, say, in quick time, that would have been a huge contribution to the chase.
And the fact that they had the insurance policy with Wokes at 8 meant that they had a bit more flexibility through that lower middle order. Doesn't work for Root today. He made 20 odd, a couple of nice shots, but boy, he looked scratchy early on. I wasn't surprised to see him strangled down the leg side. One of the only short pitch deliveries Australia seemingly bowled in the first couple of hours. If you're to be critical tactically, there are 2 things you could pick up on, and colleagues of ours on commentary have done this, former players. One is that they didn't go to the short pitch bouncer war with enough runs left. They went to it quite deep into the piece. And they didn't give Todd Murphy a chance to get into the game. He bowled 1 over before lunch. There was an opportunity when Mitch Marsh finished his productive and successful spell. He Nick Crawley off for 44. How's this? Crawley's made it to 40 19 times in Test cricket, and he's been out in the 40 7 times, which is a very high percentage. And so it was again today, just when he looked like he was going to make a real dent out for 44. But the chance was there to use Murphy, I thought, just to get some overs under his belt and make him feel like he was in the game. Instead, they throw the ball to him with, 29 runs to win, and it's all a bit all a bit too
Well,
late.
and then he bowls one over there, and then immediately gets
take the boy
taken
off.
off again because not because he bowled badly, but because Cummins has to come back on.
I just wanted to do the slug, Jordan.
Sure.
Got to get the boy off.
Got to get the boy off. So look, it was interesting, right? Because there were a couple of points where it seemed pretty cruisy when you got Root and Brook batting together, the two hometown fellas, and things are going on all right. Root's he's had the stride into the cover drive a couple of times, and then he gets one sort of ordinary bouncer from Cummins that's nowhere near him, and he gets the one sort of hip-high short ball and gloves that one through down the leg side. So 11 times in 17 tests. That would have to be the least impressive delivery that Pat Cummins has got him out with.
Yeah, I'd share that view, and the fact that it happened in such close proximity to the lunch break as well. Like, even though it felt like Stokes walking in after lunch with Bairstow to come was a great spot for England to be with 98 to get. I mean, they would have felt a lot better with Root there. Obviously, it stands to reason, a guy who's been able to ice chasers in the past and has a great record here at his home ground, but that wasn't to be. And then when Stokes gets out down the leg side as well.
Yeah, Starc bowling that
Starc, you had him, albeit with Stokes coming down the track and trying to force the issue, and that angle with the left armour with Starc. Diversion to him. I reckon it's
shifting across as well, like Root did. They're both shifting across, and so they kind of create that leg side line and then end up having to catch up with it with the gloves.
And he gets Bairstow chopping on for the 11th time in Test cricket he's picked him up. It's a low-key gem from Starc. He'll finish with 7 for the match. Made runs yesterday, 5 here from the football stand end, so running up the hill. Unusual for Starc to be bowling from, I guess, the non-preferred end, but he made that a virtue throughout the course of the test. And any suggestion that he's a luxury item, which was probably where we started at Edgbaston a couple of weeks ago. He didn't play, and the suggestion was that because he does go for runs, that he may be surplus to requirements in a series where there's a lot going on. But he's proven his worth yet again. He's got more than 300 Test wickets at 27 for a reason.
And I think you can look at, some people will look at some of those dismissals and say, Bairstow chopped on, Stokes down the leg side. They're not good deliveries. They're not in isolation good deliveries, but they don't happen in isolation. They happen in a context where Starc is bowling quick, where he's got the straight ball that's curling in. He's using the wobble seam. I'll come back to some earlier stuff in the Hall of Fame with Mitchell Starc a little later. But you don't get the wickets from those deliveries unless you've got some quality bowling going on the rest of the time as well. And he was fast and fierce today. I think he has to, I was saying before this series, he has to play every test that Australia plays if he's fit, and they didn't pick him initially, but I think he is in the side now and has to. But when he gets Bairstow, that's when things start to get really tense. That's when all of the England supporters in the ground are getting anxious. They're starting to look around because they need 80 to win. They're 6 down at that point, and you've got Wokes in there with Brook, and they're like, well, if one more falls, this is Australia's game. But if this partnership is together, and that's what Wokes offers. We've seen him do it in run chases before. We've seen him have the cool head. Look, he played a couple of bad shots early where he backed away and swished and so on, and then he settled himself down. They did try the short ball stuff at him. He fended it into the gap a bunch of times, but he was able to get through that first few deliveries when it was difficult, and gradually settle more and more at the crease. I
think we said every night of the Test match what a great selection Wokes was, and proven again today. He's a mature cricketer. Plays with a smile on his face, not to say he's not a competitor either, but 6 in the game plus the unbeaten 32, and in a partnership that was going at better than a run a minute. So it was 80 to get with 4 wickets in hand, but they knocked sort of 35 of that off in the first 30 or so minutes. When I remember I was off air, you were on air, and this all happened in a hurry, and it meant that they were able to get it to a small enough tally that when Mark Wood finally walks out there with, let's call it 20 or so to get, he was only ever 2 blows away, 21 to get, and so it proved with a couple of 6s or a 6 and a 4.
Yeah, it was a 6 and a 4. He hit the 4 through cover when they eventually pitched one.
Oh, that's right, the cover drive,
But he hooks the 6, and I mean, I thought that was daft cricket from Australia. He comes out, he's done what he did in the first innings. If you've watched Mark Wood over the last few years, like he's turned himself into a lower order hitter. He doesn't make big contributions, but he often makes a 20 or a 30, and he makes most of those off the pull shot and off the top edge. That's his strength. If he comes out and you throw everyone back as they did, and you bang it in halfway down, he knows exactly what's coming. He's got time to set himself up to camp on the back foot and to thrash it. I didn't think it was clever the way they went about that.
The thing is, I'll phrase this carefully, the analytical community had formed the view that bowling at tail-enders' heads is more effective than bowling at their stumps.
Sure, that's great, but that's not in isolation.
Let me finish. So they would probably view the fact they got Wood out from his 8th legal delivery a couple of days ago as still a success. Sure, he hit 24 runs, but they would say that if he's only faced 8 balls, then you've won. Where it where it doesn't work is when you clearly know that the batter in question is so well suited to playing the short ball, and his top edges go for 6 because he swings so bloody hard.
Yep.
He's ready for it. It's baseball stuff again, but it's in a way that it's in a setting where 6 blokes are back on the rope,
Sure.
including the fly slip. Everybody knows where the ball's going to be bowled. There's no sort of degree of risk to Wood really in that situation. He's able to back away or get across his stumps, whichever way he wants to go. And both were effective today. And then when he gets to the full ball, because he's camping on the back foot, he doesn't have to move a muscle, and he slapped it inside out through cover. That was a glorious shot.
And what it means is he's got one mode of dismissal there, which is caught off the top edge. The other modes don't come into play.
That's it.
So you can have all the analysis that says, short balls are more likely to get lower order players out. Those numbers aren't garnered in isolation, because they might be taken from situations where you're bowling different lengths a lot of the time and then throw in a surprise short ball.
We saw the same thing.
We
saw the same thing with Travis Head yesterday, didn't we? Like, they formed the view that Head was vulnerable against the short ball, and they didn't let Wokes have a crack at trying to find his outside edge when he was hooping it round corners.
But it's like saying, say this player gets out to an in-swinger a lot, so we're just going to bowl 100% in-swingers.
Yeah.
If you bowl 100% in-swingers, it doesn't have a surprise factor. That's how you get players out, is when you have a variety. So I don't think relying on the analysis there is particularly clever.
And it works in T20, by the way. In T20 cricket, what I described before, if you get someone out on the 8th ball, that has perhaps greater weighting than a test match when you have the chance to, over time, build pressure in different ways that aren't available when there's only 120 deliveries.
But so I'd say there are three points when England win this test match before they win the test match. One is Mark Wood amputating Australia's tail in the first innings. One is Mark Wood and his batting in the second innings, because he's out off his 8th ball. He makes 24. They add some more in extras and so on in that partnership as well. And the deficit is cut in half at that point in time. They're nearly 90 behind, I think, when Mark Wood comes out.
I think it was a bit more than that. They were about 130 or 140 behind, and they made 95 runs in 62 balls. So about 140 behind. It changed the whole energy of the test match.
Yeah, he takes a huge chunk out of that in that very brief partnership with Stokes out there. And then the third part is when Australia are batting in the sunshine and Smith and Labuschagne fall to Moeen cheaply, and Australia lose the chance to try to set a bigger lead. So there are 3 key points where England win before they've won, in order to give themselves the chance to win on the last day. And it's tough, and like we said last night, it's probably not going to be an easy run chase. It's probably just small enough that they will get there, but with another 50 runs would have been a much more challenging situation.
I've got your intro for your Guardian piece tonight. It's the Battle of El Alamein, it's the Battle of Midway. That's where you can go. The little skirmishes along the way that made the result, little skirmishes, what am I saying, that made the ultimate result play out, albeit much later.
Okay, so which 4 players are the aircraft carriers of the Japanese that are sunk at the Battle of Midway under, Curtis LeMay?
We can work on this later. We can workshop this later. But you're right. The Labuschagne and Smith
tactical manoeuvres. They didn't get the aircraft carriers at Pearl Harbor because they were out doing tactical manoeuvres, and the Japanese intel was no good. So the aircraft carriers weren't in port. That was the whole reason they went there. You've got to think ahead. You've got to plan ahead, Japan. And why didn't they bomb the fuel reserves instead of the ships? Take out the fuel reserves. The ships have nothing to run on. They didn't think things through.
Jeff did a thesis in this 20 years ago. So.
Yeah, I still remember some of it.
What were we talking about?
Well, we're talking about the fact that it's 2-1.
Turning points. 2-1. I just want to kind of delve into that a bit. In the lead up to the series, I was asked a lot on various interviews about 2005. And I was always very careful to say, 2005 was the unicorn. That can't happen again. You can't have a sequence of events that are so perfect that made 05 so special. We're having 2005 all over again. Yeah, sure, of course, the order's different and the way it's played out isn't completely symmetrical, but the energy. I mean, I was over here for that series, and I remember what it was like. I mean, the way that people are thoroughly transfixed by what's going on. Every half an hour has so much riding on it. You barely have a passage of play that doesn't seem to have enormous import on the final result. Normally, when you're watching a test match, there are entire sessions that don't matter an awful lot. 2 for 90 from 27.2 overs, and it doesn't mean an awful lot. When it happens here, due to the broader context of how close these teams are, I mean, I think we finished with 4 innings in this match between 224 and 257 or something like 67. I mean, it's such a tightly grouped match. There are a number of standout performances, 3 5-wicket bags, a ton from Mitchell Marsh, who, by the way, a century and 2 wickets. I mean, he on a 28, an important 28 yesterday.
He's got to be on the plane to India.
If Australia win, he's player of the match. Like, if you're giving Brownlow votes, Wood 3, Marsh 2, and if Hawthorn win, it's if Australia win, it's.
Well, Mitchell Starc's probably challenging for a vote there as well.
Yeah, that's right. 3 votes. Jay, Taylor, Dunstall kicked 8 goals in that game. He should have won the 92 ground line. What was going on?
Backs never
Kicked
get
145 goals, for Christ's sake.
Matthew Scarlett averaged about 30 possessions from full back, never got a vote.
Never got a vote. Never had a crash.
He's an excellent driver.
I just want to back over that and say that I think that the 2000 vibe, 2000.
Everyone at this ground is drunk or acting like they're drunk. All the security guards, everyone in suits on the balconies.
Well, given you brought it up, I love the fact that the security staff are getting a rousing. I just heard it before and caught a bit of it. So the
ground
some
staff
are playing on the pitch,
and
the stewards received just like a big thank you, and good on them as well. There was so much made of.
I wonder if we can get a hit.
Well, don't rule it out.
After this,
it looks like whoever is batting has got the full sort of Yorkshire kit on. Anyway,
maybe you can do the Jack Leach impersonation.
Yeah, that's right. I can put the glasses
Sorry, the Chris
on.
Rogers impersonation.
Sorry, yeah, the Todd Murphy impersonation. The Chris Rogers. I was impersonating Chris Rogers.
Yeah,
one of the great lies of our time.
That is the worst attempt at covering up something that was completely pointless to cover up.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I reckon they've done a great job here. I bang on about why Headingley's a great Ashes venue all the time, and so it is for Old Trafford, and we'll have that conversation in 9 days' time when we get there. But this has just been superb. There was so much made of the potential trouble over in the Western Terrace because of what was going on. And sure, they were going for it throughout the Test match, but it never felt out of hand. It all felt like it was a little bit pantomime. It felt like it had the right kind of energy around it. There'll be some exceptions to that rule, but this ground delivers. This pitch was brilliant. The Yorkshire crowd love Test cricket. It's a fantastic county for cricket. They're cricket lovers here. They embrace and adore the game, and it's a nice antidote to Lords last week, where there was probably a little bit of disinterest when we were watching people come back from lunch 2 hours after, 2 hours after their marquees and shut their doors and so on. This felt like proper cricket people enjoying an outstanding Test match.
Let's go to the final word, Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame, where we pick our moments of the day, the things that we enjoyed, the things that we didn't. Brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. Do you know which one's the biggest shopping centre in the in Europe? I almost said the Southern Hemisphere, because where we're from, everything's the biggest something in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, the biggest shopping centre in the cosmos, including the 2 black holes. I think it's the one at Shepherd's Bush.
Centrepoint Tower, 3rd tallest building in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, you've got it.
Flex.
You've got it. No, the one in Stratford opened in 2012 around the Olympics, and I'm pretty sure that when I was living around the corner from there, pretty sure the one at Shepherd's Bush has got it covered. That street at Shepherd's Bush, by the way, that we walked down a couple of weeks ago to get lunch and to hit some bombs when getting in the nets at Sixers, that is glorious, and I can't wait to get back there with you soon, to get kitted out. There are so many places you can buy your clothes. Someone came up to me last night, enthused that I've been talking about Mossbros on the podcast. That was quite nice.
Jonathan Mossbros and Charles Tyrrett and all the rest of it. And of course, if you can get your competitive juices flowing, you can play shuffleboard like Jeff did the other night. You can hit your dingers, you can putt your golf balls at the Putt Shack. Putt Shack baby. You got rock climbing. You can go rock climbing at the mall. Who knew?
This is it. So
Things I've learned.
Google Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. More extra, less ordinary. They're wonderful supporters of the final word. Get behind them. Tell them we sent you.
Hall of Fame, I'm going to go with that sequence of play. So first of all, when Mo and Ale comes out, terrific moment. Crowd loves it. I love it. That's the sort of the good side of the. There have been some slightly irritating things about the Stokes-McCullum axis, the stubbornness, the things where they won't admit when things haven't worked. But I like the ingenuity, I like the spontaneity, and that's an example where they're like, well, let's do this. Let's pop Mo in at 3. He comes out, and the way Mitchell Starc sets him up, bowls the best bouncer of the game, one that comes up at the sternum. Mo has to get back out of the way. It just whizzes past him. It makes him uncomfortable. You notice him mistime the next ball. He's coming onto the front foot and he's not quite all the way forward, and he sort of clunks at the bat twist in his hand, and then the next one's swinging in on leg stump, and it's the 3/4 seam ball, so it's the one that sort of angles across him and then cuts back, and it goes through the gate and smashes the stump out of the ground. It's just an amazing piece of bowling.
I think I've got a Hall of Fame moment just over my right shoulder. Chris Wokes and Harry Brook are sitting on the ground behind us having a beer, which is pretty cool. They're 59 stand. They'll be able to share those memories for the rest of their lives, knowing they've contributed to an Ashes victory here on a great ground on a Sunday afternoon again, a lovely day, and even the fact that it was cut away for 4 to the Western Terrace like Stokes 4 years ago. There were moments that rang true about the comparison between those tests on all 4 days.
And in terms of the records, like the way England play here, and anti-Hall of Fame is there's no Ashes test here in 4 years' time. There should always be an Ashes test at Headingley.
There should never be an Ashes. And I understand people get quite sensitive about ground politics. Headingley, Ashes, great venue, always.
Yeah.
Rotate other grounds. I don't care where they rotate, but here they have to play. Now, I've got some stat stuff, Hall of Famey stuff you like. Starc's 14th fifer, fourth in the fourth innings.
Fourth in the fourth innings, I can tell you, Adam, that there are 10 players in history with more fourth innings fifers than Mitchell Starc, so that's good company.
It was the fifth time that England have chased 250 plus under Stokes in 17 test matches, that is, successful chases.
Mm-hmm.
Most ever for a captain, under a captain, in terms of successful chases, 250 plus. I mentioned before Mitch Marsh made a century and took a wicket in both innings. That hasn't happened for Australia since 1926, the Ashes over here.
Who was it?
I didn't check it,
Oh.
and I will later.
1926, Jack Gregory, was he still around then?
I'm going to think about that for a second.
He played in 24.
Who would have made 100 though in the same test where they took
Gregory made hundreds.
I'm taking that on notice. I might look that up later on. We'll bring that up on story time next week. I might tell the yarn. The Murphy stop on the rope when he was diving over here in front of Western Terrace mid-air and had the presence of mind to tap it up to Usman Khawaja, who's also behind us playing with his kids, by the way.
Having already, he was hurdling the rope. He was like, freeze framed like a gazelle, and he slapped it back while he was outside the field of play, but in the air.
And the last thing was that last night the England team said they wanted this to be a one-day international chase. They won the game today on the final ball of the 50th over.
Oh. Chef's
Don't
kiss.
you love it?
Chef's
Don't
kiss.
you love this stuff?
And that's how England's women went about it in Canberra 18 months ago when they were set 250 odd in about 55 overs. They went, okay, it's just an ODI chase with no fielding restrictions, just go out. And they very nearly got it. They were 12 runs short when they shut up shop for the draw, 9 wickets down. So, yeah, I mean, it can work. It can work. And on a day like this, it felt a bit like a one-day.
Last thing I want to mention before we sign off and say goodbye, we're doing a live show and we've just agreed the terms on this. More information probably tomorrow. I think we're going to do the weekly program tomorrow, so we'll front load that with information. But heads up to Final Word listeners, live show. Bugger it, I'll tell you now. Stephen Finn's the guest.
Okay.
Stephen Finn's going to be with us. We did a live show with Finny in Adelaide a couple of years ago that was so much fun. We've decided to do it in London as well. The venue's right in the middle of town. Tickets will be on sale tomorrow. There'll be a discounted ticket price for our patrons because we adore you. And if you wish to sign up to our Patreon and have a lot of fun hanging out with other like-minded people, patreon.com/the final word. Some of them were making their own 30-second summaries of the women's game last night. I saw Anna Collins doing her bit, doing I guess it was an unofficial Final Word Daily. We did have a daily last night, hosted by two women, Alex Hartley and Melissa Story, and I thought that was brilliant as well. Good to have them in the host rotation with us.
Yep, so we're broadening out our host family bit by bit. As the years go by, more and more people have been involved. We'd like to have you involved in whatever way you want to get involved as well. This has been The Final Word, Ashes Daily, Day 4 at Leeds. The first test in this series that hasn't gone the full journey, but we'll be making more podcasts on Day 5 because that's what we do. Can't stop, won't stop. We'll see you soon.
This is the best.